Happy Devil's Wednesday. This is State of the Fan Address, episode 355, titled Don't Be Hayton. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with PucksandPitchforks.com, editor-in-chief Nick Villano, as we're streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, Twitch, and now on Instagram Live on the Let's Go Devils Network, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in both North and South Jersey bunkers, covering the Garden State, talking Devils hockey. Yeah, this offseason, a lot of chatter on X, lots of fans talking about the offer sheets, and we got a special guest coming up in the next couple minutes. From PuckPedia. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I don't give a sheet.
That's funny.
I don't. He's dead to me until July 1st, 2027, when he inevitably signs with the Devils. and here's the thing, Sam. The Devils and Utah, kind of the same interesting dilemma, where. And Utah signed up for it, because here's what's really funny to me. I'm going to talk to Keith about this. Keith from PuckPedia. Keith, I believe it's Kavanaugh, but I just want to.
Yeah, it is.
Him.
It is.
Okay. We're going to be speaking with Keith Kavanaugh of PuckPedia, who's been doing great work. He used to work for MSG. He's worked for a bunch of different places as well, but knows the Devils inside and out. Really great guy to have on the podcast. I want to ask him what he thinks of the move for Utah, because they came out today and they just straight up said, Vinny Trocheck's a wing because Hayton's coming back. And you paid a premium to get one of the top centers on the market in Trocheck, right? You paid one of your top prospects, and I can't remember his name, Beauchemin? That's not his name. I can't. Cole something. Cole B. But you paid a premium there, and you gave up, a good defenseman to the Rangers to get this guy, Trocheck, who was one of the top centers on the market. I don't know. I saw what the Devils did. I don't know. I don't see the value in matching for Utah unless their thought process is we'll sign them in January and then trade them in the offseason. We'll fit. Having too many centers is a good problem to have, I guess, is in their head. But what does Trocheck think of this, right? Like, Trocheck waived his no-trade clause to go to you. You were originally on his list, and now he has to move out of position. I feel like, again, Sonny Maeda, I still think it's a smart move. A lot of people are like, what was the point? I mean, nothing happened the past 6 days that Sonny Maeda lost out on, right? Jason Robertson wasn't moved. Dylan Larkin wasn't moved. Not that he's in on him, but, in case he is. Dylan Larkin wasn't moved. Shane Wright wasn't moved. There's the top free agents. Michael Bunting hasn't signed. Anthony Mantha hasn't signed. The top free agents have been the same guys for the past 6 days. Patrick Kane hasn't signed. Vladimir Tarasenko hasn't signed. And not that I want the Devils to go after these guys, but they haven't lost anything from this. But I do want to bring Keith on. So Sam, are we good? Can we bring Keith on?
Just give me 1 second here. Just give me 1 second. I'm sorry, we're having a little technical difficulties. Keep on going. Sorry.
Yeah. So the Devils have lost nothing here, nothing at all, and they they took a shot. And you look at the difference between the Barrett Hayton offer sheet and the Leo Carlson offer sheet. $4 million and having to hide away $4 million when the Devils are actively trying to trade a couple guys anyway is much different than trying to figure out what to do with $18 million. And so I think the Devils put themselves in a spot that it made perfect sense. Barrett Hayton, I think, can be better than a $4 million player, but you question it. So, you really put Utah in a bind, but Utah came out. But I believe Keith is on the line, right, Sam?
Absolutely. Let's get him in. How are you, Keith?
Good. What's going on, fellas? How we doing?
We're doing great. For those who don't know, Keith Kavanaugh used to be with MSG Network, so he knows the Devils pretty well. He knows the New York area teams, but has moved to PuckPedia, has been doing a great podcast. The PuckPedia has had some Devil-centric guests on. You're kind of our competition, Keith. You're killing it out there with some of these guests. But no, Keith, you're one of the great minds when it comes to contracts. You going to PuckPedia makes perfect sense. So thank you for coming on and sharing some of that expertise.
Of course, happy to come on. Happy to spit through some of this stuff and just chew through everything that's kind of happened over the last few days. It's been an eventful offseason, to say the least.
It's been fun. This has been one of the more fun off seasons in a while. You had some good trades, and I want to get into the trades because I don't think the trades are done. I think this is going to be one of those unusual off seasons that moves into late July. But before we get there, I want to talk about the offer sheet from your perspective. First, talk about it from Utah's perspective, because a lot of people went into this, including the Frank Seller Valleys and all these other insiders, said this is an obvious match. And I didn't see it that way. I think that there was definitely some multiple days of hour-long meetings trying to figure out whether this is the right idea. After hearing Utah come out today and say things like, Vinny Trocheck is going to be a winger, things like that, that clearly is not what they wanted. What is your initial thoughts from the Utah side? Why did they match this?
I think from Utah's perspective, just given how much cap space they have right now, and then the return on the AAV compensation that Sonny offer sheet at Barrett Hayton to, which was a second-round draft pick, I think that they just felt that you can't lose a player like this who's your former 5th overall pick. He's in 2018 or whenever he got drafted. So, you invested a lot of time and effort into developing this player, and centers don't grow on trees. So to just get a second-round pick for a player like this at $4.775 million, it's a one-year commitment. You can look at it a couple ways, right? It's basically their own trade deadline rental. They're a team that wants to compete this year. Like you mentioned, they got Vincent Trocheck in the offseason. They also got Anders Lee. Like, they tried to beef up their forward group a little bit. And I know that you've mentioned that they did get rid of Sean Dursey and Cole Beaudoin in the trade with the Rangers. But I think to your point, like, yes, Trocheck was in this point in July. They were mentioning he might play the wing, but injuries happen. He's also a really top guy, a top face-off guy. So I think there's going to be some maneuvering, some mixing and matching. Barrett Hayton also has played wing in his career before. So it's not to say that Trocheck's not going to play center. And I don't think that Trocheck's going to be bothered by that. I think he just is happy to go to a group that wants to win and does these kind of moves. So I think for Utah, it just made sense because not only do they have the cap room to match, but they still have an additional $4.58 million to work with. So they have a lot of they can make some things happen still that isn't like putting them to the cap. And then from Sonny and the Devils side of things, I think it makes a lot of sense, right? They have Cody Glass right there penciled in as the 3C, but if you're able to slot him down to the 4C, and then you have Barrett Hayton as your 3C, that's a nice 1, 2, 3, 4 punch down the middle with some guys like an Evan Rodriguez, like a Dawson Mercer, who have that flexibility to play wing and center. It gives you a lot of options, a lot of variability. You can really mix and match the line combos, and I think it gives Sheldon Keefe a lot of toys to play with. So I think that's why they made the offer sheet, and also all the back and forth with they had a deal at the deadline. It didn't go through. And then now Utah can't trade Barrett Hayton, right? So they walk him to UFA. he is eligible to sign an extension on January 1st. So there's a world where they do extend him and he doesn't necessarily walk to UFA. But Hayton has all the power in this situation now. He can just say, I'm not negotiating with you. I'll ride the season out, and then I'll see what my market value is on July 1, 2027.
If you're Utah, are you trying to re-sign him, whether you're going to trade him on July 1st or keep him? Or is that just seeing the makeup of the roster and what he's probably going to cost in a long-term deal? I would assume that goes past 5, maybe 6 on a long-term deal. You would know better than me, but are you trying to re-sign him just to kind of make this worthwhile?
Yeah, I think to your point, I think that like long-term deal would be in the 6 to 7 range, just given the rising cap, given his age, and given where the center market is. It's totally reset now with Leo Carlson making $18 million next season. But I think from Utah's perspective, like you can look at it 2 ways. One, they can look at it as they sign him and they keep their asset. And then past July 1st, they can decide, depending on how they negotiate it, if there's trade clauses, whatever the case may be, if they want to trade him or keep him. But they could also just be like, you know what? We got as much out of him as we think we can. We're happy with him kind of going his separate way on July 1 of next year. We have replaced him in our depth chart with a Vincent Trocheck. Like we still have Logan Cooley and Nick Schmaltz kind of down the middle. So I think there's a lot of options that Utah could go. And I don't think that if they don't sign him and they let him walk to UFA, I don't actually think it's the end of the world for them. And I think that we'll see how the season plays out for them. If they're out of the playoff race, though, it would be tough to know that you could have had a tradable asset that you're going to have to hold on to and then let him walk to UFA.
So if you're Sonny Mehta, what do you do now? What's your next move?
Yeah. I think that's a loaded question. I think there's so much that can be done with the Devils and what they're going to do this offseason. It seems like a lot of Devils Twitter right now is kind of clamoring for who's going to replace Barrett Hayton as this new 3C. And a lot of people seem to want Shane Wright as that piece, the former 4th overall pick of the Seattle Kraken. He does have some interesting pieces to his game, but he hasn't produced like I think that we have expected him to produce. So does he necessarily fit the bill as someone who's going to come in and help add value to the Devils immediately? I'm not so sure. And then also, what would Seattle want in a package to trade for him? Like he's a former, he makes $860,000 this year. He's an RFA with team control for the next 4 seasons. So he has a lot of value in kind of how they can control their asset. So I'm not necessarily sure how that trade would even look. The Devils have about $7.6 million right now in projected cap space. So they have some room to work with. On the forward front, like top 6 winger has kind of been just the position that everyone has seemed to talk about over and over again, that we need to have someone to help Jack put some goals in the back of the net. A different guy from Seattle, Jared McCann, could be interesting, who just has 1 year left at $5 million per season. He's a guy that can score. He's scored 30 goals in his career a couple times. So he's someone who's put the puck in the back of the net. You're not making a long-term commitment there. I think that could be interesting, and I don't think it would cost too much. Even like a guy like Dylan Larkin, right? He requested a trade from Detroit. He kept his list super small: Minnesota, Florida, Vegas. But if he expands it, like he has that chemistry with Jack. They played together at 4 Nations and in the U.S. with the Olympics. Larkin also, I was talking to Chris Pronger today, like he thinks Larkin's better on the wing than at center. So maybe you have Jack at center, Larkin on the wing. You have Larkin take some faceoffs for Jack. There could be something there with them too, and Jesper Bratt. So I think those are maybe some moves the Devils could look at. But even you look at guys like on the Islanders, right? Bo Horvat, Matt Barzal. They have really appealing contracts now, given where the center market's going. $8 million, $9 million. A guy like Brock Besser could be interesting. He has 6 years left at 7.25. Vancouver is kind of in a fire sale. I don't know that Sonny wants a guy through age 35 with 6 years left, but there's ideas out there of where we can go on the wing. And then you got to look at the defense, right? There's kind of a logjam on defense right now. You got to pencil in Dougie and Pesci on that right side. And then I think the only 2 guys you can really pencil in on the left side is Luke and Declan Chisholm, who they just traded a 4th-round pick for. I think any one of the 3 of Kovacevic, Siegenthaler, and Dillon could be potentially moved. And I think Sonny also signed Kolyachonik. He told me how to pronounce that name, so I think I nailed that. I think he's really the guy they want as their 7th defenseman. He's making, $875K. He doesn't want to pay Declan Chisholm $1.6 million to be their seventh defenseman. So I think there's going to be one move on the back end that kind of opens up the door maybe for one of those guys to slide in. And then in gold, we have this three-headed monster. I think that's going to be interesting. I don't know if there's any more moves to be made there. I think they might roll with them and just play them as like a three-headed monster, which I think could be interesting. 20, 30 games a pop, and ride the hot hand into the playoffs. And then there's always the Quinn question, right? Until you see Quinn Hughes put pen to paper with Minnesota, you have to leave open the possibility that a trade is possible with the New Jersey Devils. It was part of the reason why Tom Fitzgerald got a little bit in trouble last year when the opportunity arose. There was not enough salary cap space and there were too many guys with no trade clauses. So I think Sonny is not going to, he's going to learn from that lesson, and he's going to realize that until you see pen to paper, you have to leave open the opportunity for Quinn, who only makes $7.85 million. They essentially have all that cap space right now anyway, so there's no cap problems there. But if they start making other moves, then they could get themselves in cap trouble.
Yeah, you said a lot I want to react to, so I'm going to just kind of go line by line real quick. Let's start with the Quinn thing. I was on this podcast, and again, you're the contracts guy, you work for PuckPedia, you would know this better than me, but from my calculations, using your Puck GM tool, I got Quinn Hughes on this roster in December with Jack Hughes on LTIR, and then you could have figured out the Dougie Hamilton thing, or whoever you wanted to trade, whoever Fitzgerald wanted to trade later, where you want to trade. You could have just traded Kovacevic or Dawson. The way I did it is you traded Dawson Mercer in the Quinn Hughes deal, and then you traded Kovacevic later, or you traded, obviously Dougie would have solved the problem instantly, but you could have traded Kovacevic. You could have traded, I think there's another guy that was making like 4 that you could have traded.
But Kovacevic Kovacevic and Palat both had full no moves. So like that is where the issue was. It wasn't just the ability to trade those guys. It was the fact that they had these clauses that they wouldn't allow them to be moved.
Sure. But you could, I think there was another way you could have buried 2 or 3 guys. And these are really hard decisions to make, but it's for Quinn Hughes. You know what I mean? These are guys like Stefan Nason is not your long-term plan, and Palat is not your long-term plan. Kovacevic is not your long-term plan. If you have to kind of take it on the chin for a lot of these things, you do what you got to do. And Bill Guerin did it. He did what he had to do to get Quinn Hughes. And Tom Fitzgerald had basic first right. I don't know if it's first right of refusal, but he had the first shot at it, right? Vancouver
that's what we think. That's what we think. We don't know that for sure. That's our understanding. That's what people are saying.
I have it on good authority that I think he had the first shot, but
I like Fitzy, so I'm not trying to bash the guy. Like he's always good to me, but I think we don't know everything, right? We don't know exactly how it played out, and so we have a general understanding of what happened. But to your point, when Quinn Hughes is the option and his 2 brothers already play on this hockey team, you have to do whatever you can to get him, because he's the second best defenseman in the NHL behind Cale Makar, and it's pretty close between them. So I think when that's an opportunity to reunite them, and then you work out everything else later, right? You can build around Jack and Quinn in perpetuity for the next decade.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this. I've said this about Fitzgerald. I thought Fitzgerald was a top 10 GM until they lost to Carolina, and I think he overreacted to losing to Carolina in 03 or 23. I think it was a victim of circumstance. The Devils had 1 day's rest. Carolina had 5 days rest. It was a bad matchup. It is what it is. I think.
And you're coming off that high of beating the Rangers in 7 games. There's an emotional aspect to it too. So I get it. And I understand why you overreact. You're this is the team we have to get through. So we have to kind of try to position ourselves to beat them. But sometimes that's what gets you in trouble too as a general manager.
Yeah. So I think that there was just a focus that was on the wrong thing. I think Fitzgerald's going to go to another team. And I think it's a blessing in disguise that he didn't get Nashville. Because, again, it's one of those things where it's just too comfortable. I think he has to come out of his comfort zone again, like he did when he left Pittsburgh and came to New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I know Shero was here, but it was still he had to take over a different organization. I thought he thrived in that situation. I think that's kind of.
And he won the offseason a couple years in a row. People were raving about the moves he made in the offseason. So it is what it is, and that's why Sonny's now in charge, and we're going to put our faith behind him.
Sure, absolutely. Now. I do want to touch on the Shane Wright thing real quick, just because you can ask Sam. I've been talking about Shane Wright for a year. I've been saying, go get this guy. This guy has he reminds me. Do you remember when Jack Hughes played with Eric Holla and they had magic in a bottle for about 3 weeks? Yep. I think this is like the rich man's version of that. I think this could sustain. Okay. I don't think Shane Wright's a great center from like a superstar standpoint, from like what you would think of as like a number 1 overall pick, from like that like top tier guy. But I think if you could play him in like a really good Pavel Zacha role with David Pastrnak next to Hughes, I think that that's a partnership that could really work. Like he takes the face off, then goes plays like the traditional wing, and then Jack Hughes goes and he's the play driver. He's the guy with the puck and the stick. He's the center outside of the face off, right? And then Shane Wright plays really good defense. He has offensive skills, so he'd keep up. Like you remember, he's not very fast, but neither was Tyler Toffoli, and Tyler Toffoli is probably Jack Hughes' best winger of his entire career.
Tyler was awesome when he was here.
So I think those are some of the lessons learned. I don't think they're going to do it because I don't think that's the type of guy that Maida's looking for. I think Seattle's going to ask for the moon.
Yeah, you got to think about the acquisition cost there. He is the one thing that's nice is he's still like in his restricted free agent years, so he doesn't have any trade protection, so he can't shoot down any deals. He has no say in the matter, so that's a positive.
Right, and Larkin's interesting. I love Larkin's chemistry with Hughes. I think they work really well together. Will they, again, acquisition cost is probably the worry here. I don't think they're going to, like, especially now that you don't have Nemitz, right? Because Nemitz was like that centerpiece that we always talked about, former 2nd overall pick who had scored a bunch of goals as a defenseman last year. Now that he's gone, you're looking to build around Mercer, right? I think they'd just be like, you need to put Bratt in the deal. And I just think
there's for trade packages, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. The good news is the Devils do have a lot of draft picks. They have 2 first-rounders next year. They have 2 first-rounders the following year. They have a first-rounder in 29. They also have all 3 second-rounders the next 3 years. So they basically have 8 picks in the first 2 rounds in the next 3 drafts. So there's a lot of draft capital that could be allocated in some of these deals to maybe offset for the lack of prospects. And we could talk about that Nemec deal too. Like at first glance, you're like, man, I really thought that he was going to be the centerpiece of a deal that would bring back a top 6 winger. But when you think about it, he will be, in theory, when they repackage those picks to then get a top 6 winger or whatever the case may be. So sometimes you have to take a step back and you have to realize, like, this isn't the end result. And he got, basically 3 first-round picks. Like the second, it was early, and the 2 firsts were late, and a prospect. And then they didn't have to pay him $7.25 million on his next deal, which came below what I expected, but I still think is a bit, rich for my blood for what he brings to the table at this point in his career. And maybe it works out with him in Calgary, new role, new environment, new opportunities. But I think the Devils were best suited to move on from him, given that they already have a ton of defensemen on their back end that they can build around. They also have guys like Seamus Casey, Anton Silyev in the pipeline. So there are guys that still could kind of get up there as well. But I think it'll be interesting to see how Sonny uses those draft picks to kind of rebuild this team as well.
And I've said this before. I think Seamus Casey's NHL ready. He got hurt last year, which completely hurt what he could do. But I think he's a guy under the right tutelage, which I think Brad Shaw could give him. Listen, he's going to make mistakes over the first 20 games of his, his first full season. But I think he could jump in. And, I still think they could trade Hamilton because I think Casey can provide some of that offense, right? They were playing him a weird role when he played in the NHL. If you look at his numbers, he actually has decent defensive metrics and weirdly bad offensive metrics, except for the goals. Mm-hmm. I think we know his skill, right? There's just something, he was just playing a weird thing, maybe holding his stick a little too tight and just focusing on that defensive side of the NHL. But we've seen what he could do on an offensive level at Michigan and a little bit at Utica. I'll tell you this. I think the underrated part of this and kind of part of all these packages is that Sonny Maeda is not tied to any of these draft picks they didn't make. So yeah, I think he's fine with with Casey, with Silyev, with Yegorov, with Ben Kevin, Connor Fonderk, because here's we talked about the Nemes trade. The 2 picks that they made this year, they made the 2nd round pick, but they traded back and got that 4th round pick. I think are the 2 best picks they made. I'm not a big
I like Van Hanen a lot.
Van Hanen looks really good. I think Galashov is their best draft pick. I think that he's going to be in the NHL. I think people say he's either going to be in the top 6 or not in the NHL. I think he's going to be a middle 6 guy. He could score already. He's got incredible skill, and I love betting on the upside. So again, if you keep those 2 picks and then you trade the 2 first-rounders you got for Nemitz in a trade for a top 6 guy now, I think it's a slam dunk trade. You have to see that next move with the Nemitz thing.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted Kyrou a little bit. Like, that was the kind of guy I thought would have fit in with this team like a glove. Like, he scores, he's so fast, he can keep up with Bratt and Jack and play at a super high level, and he would just be a massive beneficiary to all the work that those guys can do. So I was a little disappointed when that didn't happen. We'll see what happens with this Jason Robertson situation. Obviously, he doesn't have the foot speed, but 98 points in the NHL is 98 points in the NHL, so it's hard to scoff at that. So, I mean, we'll see what he wants on a contract and how that gets worked out in Dallas. But that could be an interesting piece that would, I think, drive a lot of offense for New Jersey as well.
Yeah, the fact that nothing's happened there is interesting. Right?
He filed for arbitration, so I think they kind of have to wait that out unless they get a deal done basically before then.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they learn from Zach Parise. If you send a guy right to UFA, he's going to take that route, and he's going to go pick his team next year. But listen, Dallas has one of the best GMs and Jim Nill in the league, so you got to trust what they're doing. You want the Devils to kind of be in that conversation about making those incredible moves, and I think somebody may have started it. Now, I know we're kind of to the end here, so I do want to talk about 2 quick things. Do you think we've mentioned a lot of guys? Who do you think is the next big name that's traded? You can be real quick with this.
Yeah, I think, obviously the main ones that everyone's talking about is Larkin and Hellebuck. Like, I actually do still think Zach Werenski gets traded, but maybe closer to training camp, even though they came out with those statements. Like, I had Jeff Merrick on our show yesterday, and he was like, I still think Werenski for Harley is going to happen. So we'll see how that plays out. But to me, I think the next big name that's going to be traded is Elias Pettersson. I just feel like Vancouver has to just do a full reset here. They have the new management group coming in. They made their top pick with Caleb Malhotra. Like, I think that Vancouver just kind of needs that reset, and Elias Pettersson is going to be the guy to do that, get off $11.6 million off their books, get some assets back. Maybe they have to retain on it. It's not ideal with the length of that deal still going on, but I think he's going to be a big name, and I think he can be kind of a big name that gets traded. I think Kirill Marchenko is interesting too. He only has 1 year left at about $3.8 million in Columbus, and given where they're all at in flux right now, I think he's a guy that's going to be like, I'm not going to resign here. And then GM Don Waddell is going to kind of have no choice but to move him. And again, he'd be a great piece for the Devils. So we'll see how that plays out. Anaheim's going to have to move a piece when they inevitably match this Leo Carlson deal. It's going to be one of their middle 6 forwards. So Frank Vetrano, Chris Kreider, Alex Killorn, pick one of those guys. They're going to get moved as well.
Do you like Kreider for the Devils?
I haven't really thought about it. He's fast. He doesn't have too much juice left on that deal. He would be a great net front guy on the power play. It's where he's made his living for the last 10, 15 years. It would be a fun storyline to have Kreider on the Devils against Rangers. Like, Devils-Rangers games would be pretty fun. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I just don't know if that's how they want to use their cap space. But if they get to a point in the season where nothing else is kind of panned out and Anaheim's kind of giving them away for nothing, I think it could be something that's worth a listen at least.
Yeah, if they didn't just make like those weird moves for like Greer and everybody, I would say like maybe Nason goes the other way and they kind of like eat a little bit of that cap hit. But I think they just don't really have any use for Nason just because they got Greer and they got right. Yeah, they're trying to get off that.
They were contract. A team that had so much cap space and so much potential, and they were going to lock up their young core to reasonable deals, a la the Montreal Canadiens, and then Danny Briere just hit him with an absolute hammer. Yeah, and listen, like Pat Verbeek kind of did to himself, right? You can't just be a hard, with everybody all the time. And we love Pat Verbeek, former Devil. He was one of the legends of the '80s, but eventually he got hit back. It comes
right,
last
question. I'll make this really quick. Free agency. Is there anything out there for the Devils right now? Even a PTO. Like, is there a guy who's like, look at him, see if he has juice? Like, I don't think Patrick Kane's signing a PTO. I don't even think Anthony Mantha's signing a PTO. But is there anyone out there you'd be like, give this guy a shot, see what he's got?
Well, Mantha's interesting because I think he's actually holding out for like a longer term deal is what it sounds like. Like, he had a really good year last year. So It just depends on what teams are kind of willing to do. So I think because he didn't get signed in that first wave of free agency, his case can probably linger a bit until like August and even September. Wouldn't Adam Henrique be a nice story if he kind of came back to the Devils? I don't know what utility they have for him, especially with Bukestad as their 4C right now, but that would just be a nice feel good story. I don't know how much juice he has left in his career. He didn't do too much with Edmonton last year, but that would be nice. Patrick Laine is an interesting piece as well. Like, he's a guy who, because of his injuries last year, he can take one of those bonus laden deals. So you can get him at a super low AAV and then build a lot of incentives in his contract. So hit goals, points, games played markers, where when you have the salary cap overages in the next season, you're happy because he performed to a certain level. Like, you're not on the hook for him. So you sign him to a 1x1 and give him an extra $4 or $5 million in bonuses. I think that could be an interesting piece if the Devils are trying to find just a real sniper who, is coming off a lot of injuries and bad luck and maybe still has some juice left in his game.
Yeah, I like Laine. It's just I'm wondering if the juice is worth the squeeze kind of thing. So that's the only thing that I worry about with him. I do think he'll take a bonus laden contract. I think he's I believe in myself guy. But then you kind of then you have to worry about talking yourself into him, right? I don't think Meta would do that though. I think Meta would say, I know what this is. Go to free agency, you have someone else pay you, and have a nice day. Keith Kavanaugh, you mentioned some of the people you've been talking to. I also know you spoke with Rachel with the MSG and you've just been talking to so many different people. You've been killing it on the podcast. Take a minute, just promote everything you've been doing at PuckPedia and give people a reason to jump over to your podcast as well.
Yeah, we're doing everything's on YouTube, just at PuckPedia on YouTube. We post all clips on Instagram and Twitter. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this follows PuckPedia on Twitter, knows the website. You go to the website, you get all the salary cap information. Like you mentioned, Nick, you could do Puck GM. You can build your own team within the salary cap. You can do this year. You can do next year. You can see all the cap projections. You can ask questions on PuckPedia if you don't know the offer sheet tracker. Someone today was like, why didn't the Devils just offer Barrett Hayton a 1x$8 million AAV offer sheet? The Devils don't have the draft compensation to do an offer sheet in that range. They could only do the $4.775 million or the $11.9 million. So stuff like that people don't know about. I think people understand maybe 80% of the salary cap. And then there's that 20% confusing nuance that PuckPedia tries to supplement and give the audience. So yeah, we've had some great guests on, like we mentioned, Merrick, Chris Pronger, Steve Warrior, former Panthers GM, Johnny Lazarus, Mike Kelly. Like you mentioned, Rachel Herzog lives in my building. She's great. Love Rachel. The Devils are in great shape this year. I'm excited for Sonny. Got to talk to him at his intro press conference and then on the Zoom media availability the other day. I'm excited for the season and, hope the Devils, they're going to make a couple moves. They're definitely not done. Everyone who's saying the offseason's over, this is the roster that's going to be displayed on opening night, pause the brakes a little bit. There's going to be moves to be made. It's going to get fleshed out. Everyone relax. It'll be okay.
I agree, Keith. And Keith, if you ever come to a Devils game, we're always broadcasting live at American Whiskey right on. Is it Heischer Place now? Is that official, Sam, or do I have to still say Edison Place?
51 Heischer Place in beautiful downtown Newark,
Perfect.
New Jersey.
I frequent American Whiskey a lot. Shout out Kevin, my guy, the owner of American Whiskey, one of my good friends. Big fan. Loves what I'm doing. Love what he's doing. Got to watch a couple Knicks games in the city with him at American Whiskey at Midtown. So just class of the earth. So I'll definitely see you guys over there for some games this year.
Yeah, and Sam will buy you a catfish. He'll buy you one of the catfish dinners.
They'll serve it there. That was the other place before American Whiskey came aboard.
Oh, my fault. Okay, we'll get you some wings or something. Just come say hi. We'll get you a plate of wings.
Sounds good, fellas.
All right, thanks, Keith.
Talk to you guys later.
Yep. Thank you. That's Keith Kavanaugh, PuckPedia. That was amazing. He said a lot. There was a lot of sound bites there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to use that for my trolling tomorrow. But at the same time, I want to keep him out of it because he seems to be a really, he knows what he's talking about. Because
he does.
Money is everything. Money is everything, Nick.
Yeah, I think There's a lot. I obviously we're going to want to talk about the Quinn Hughes part of it. I think there's a lot with Quinn Hughes, right? The way the trade went down, I do have it on. I do think the Devils had first dibs. Whether that was Tom calling and getting the process started, or Quinn saying he wanted to go to the Devils, I don't know if that per se happened. I don't.
I can tell you it did. I can tell you it did.
I think Quinn. I got told by a lot of people Quinn was mad, but I think he saw the opportunity. I think the exact thing happened to Minnesota that put them in this position. If they went to 7 games of Colorado, I think Quinn's re-signed by now. If they lost in the first round of Dallas, I think Quinn's out. They're in this no man's land where Quinn doesn't really know. Is this really a Stanley Cup team? When I look at that roster, I don't think it is. I got to be honest. The Devils are a goalie away from being equal to the Minnesota Wild roster. Their centers on New Jersey are so much better than Minnesota's. And then you see Jesper Bratt. I think Jesper Bratt, and they're going to kill me for this. They're going to clip this. But I think Jesper Bratt and Matt Boldy are the same. They have similar numbers. They have similar impacts. I think they both play a two-way game. Kaprizov is worlds better than anybody in the Devils, but there's one of him, and then there's 2 Devils centers. And then Quinn Hughes is worlds better than Luke Hughes and Dougie Hamilton combined. But everything after Quinn Hughes on the Wild isn't great, right? Joel Eriksson Ek is I think he's 2 rungs below Hischier, personally. And he's 10 rungs below Jack Hughes. They have nothing. Essentially, you want to compare Kaprizov to Hughes. You want to compare Eriksson Ek to Hischier. I think Hughes and Kaprizov they kind of cancel each other out. And then Eriksson Ek and Hischier, let's be nice and say they cancel each other out. Hischier's clearly better, but whatever. You look at the rest of the roster, the rest of the forward group, right? And you have Bratt and Boldy who cancel each other. It's kind of a very similar roster, right? It's the only difference is that the Devils' best player got hurt. Jack Hughes was one of the best players in the league from the end of the Olympics on. He was playing at an MVP level. And he tried his best to put the team on his back. He admitted that he kind of knew it was over. I'm going to tell you something. My biggest concern for the season is the coaching staff. I like Bradshaw a lot. I really like the Sheldon Keefe hire. I've spoken my displeasure with the situation. I don't need to go into it anymore. I'm putting my full faith in Sheldon Keefe. The things that happened last year were so unlike a Sheldon Keefe team. I've never seen a team go down in the dumps and not be able to get out of it in Toronto, or even in New Jersey faced all those injuries against Carolina, and they were still fighting to the death with Carolina last year. 2 years ago. Last year, I guess it was last year, fighting to the death with Carolina. Last season, there was no fight in this team. Jacob Markstrom would give up a bad goal, and that was kind of that. And I think that's why, I see a lot of Devils fans saying, I should have just kept Markstrom. It didn't work. Clear as day, it didn't work. The Devils and Markstrom just didn't work. For whatever reason, it didn't work. And sometimes it doesn't work. It's better to go with league average than boom or bust. And Markstrom, even in 2014-15, he had some real stinkers in there. And the real issue is that I think Sonny Maeda. So if I'm Sonny Maeda, I'm looking at the situation that Sheldon Keefe put Jake Allen in, and I say, I mean, his save percentage got tanked because at the end of the season he played him like once a month, and like he got shelled.
And I don't know why. I was screaming for Allen to play, begging.
That's the one thing that I've never gotten an answer on that. Have you? I've never gotten an answer on what.
Let me clarify a lot of things. All right, I'm saying this based on instinct. There's no sources on this, but I will say this. I think this had a lot about Fitzgerald feeling the heat because he completely blew that entire Quinn Hughes thing. And even before then, he was, before those rumors persist back in November, he was feeling the pressure. And when Tom Fitzgerald was feeling the pressure, he was making stupid moves. There was no reason to give him that extension at all. And he was betting on hope that he could hope that Markstrom would be, give him that one special year like Mike Richter did back in 1994. And I think it just spun out of control. I think Sheldon Keefe had enough. I think we're going to see a different type of Sheldon Keefe coaching this season. I think, in some ways, in respect, I thought Sheldon Keefe kind of checked out. And the players did as well. You had the whole locker room mess with the Quinn Hughes thing. And going back to the Quinn Hughes thing, I'm going to tell you right now, Vancouver had known for at least 2 years prior to that trade that eventually Quinn, who was kind of politely telling them, look, you got to do what you got to do, but this is how I feel. Well, they try to facilitate it. I mean, Jim Rutherford was sending smoke signals to frickin' Tom Fitzgerald, take him, through the media. And Tom wouldn't budge. And I suspect that Tom Fitzgerald, honestly, was trying to make the perfect move, but really, he botched it. He totally botched it, and it snowballed, and it manifested. Had he bit the bullet and done it sooner, he wouldn't have gone into this like Dougie Hamilton, the locker room mess back in November around that time. And there were a lot of players, and then there's the other controversy as well. When Shimon Nemec is looking down the bench at Luke Hughes making $9 million, but I'm scoring all these game-winning goals, and I'm the one that's always held accountable, but you're not, that's a problem. And what Sonny Maeda has done was, and it's not Shimon Nemec's fault for thinking like that, but Sonny Maeda has hit the reset button. And on top of everything else, Nick, let me tell you, Sonny Maeda is weaponizing the cap space because now he has cap space and he has some flexibility. He's got options right now, and he doesn't have to move a finger. And he has more leverage right now with Minnesota and Bill Guerin than Tom Fitzgerald ever did right now.
Why? Why do you think he has leverage?
Number one, there's something that Tom Fitzgerald cannot control is the amount of years, because last year it was 2 years versus 1. Now we're talking about 1 year right now where Quinn could be a New Jersey Devil without the Devils giving up anything. Secondly, what if you're negotiating right now, if Quinn Hughes and the Minnesota Wild right now, your options are on the table. Everybody's talking about this 3-year thing. The 3-year thing only benefits Minnesota. They keep them a total of 4 years. 4 years before you can play with your brothers. 4. And there's also Luke. Right now, the Devils have both Jack and Luke tied up together, in theory, for the next 4 years. The path to least resistance is just wait a year, not sign an extension, but at the same time, what's really holding him back probably is that 8-year possibly, and taking the money now, guaranteed, before the next collective bargaining agreement. Quinn has to make some tough decisions. There's a lot of risk, but the least amount of risk right now is waiting 1 year, because a lot can happen in 4 years. Who knows? God forbid Jack or Luke has a catastrophic injury, and then you're not playing at all. You just don't know. I mean, the National Hockey League is a privilege. It can end tomorrow over like, look at Jack. He cut his finger out of nowhere, and it had nothing to do with hockey, this time. So when you look at the risk, Nick, and if it's really about family and paying the brother, the Hughes side of the family are from the East Coast. Why do you think they wear Yankees caps? Why do you think they are Giants fans? There's an influence there. Everyone says the Michigan thing is not. They're more on the East Coast. They always have been. I mean, the
parents are Midwesterners.
No,
that's why they live
mom's
in the Midwest.
The mom's side is
okay.
The dad's side. Dad's side is New Jersey, New York, that whole East Coast line. That's the Hughes family.
But think about where Jack Hughes grew up. Quinn Hughes grew up. They were born in Florida. I don't know I think Quinn was born in Florida because their dad worked for the Orlando Solar Bears.
Correct.
And then he got promoted, or whatever you want to call it. He got a new job in Toronto, and he worked for the Marlies for a while, and then he worked in the Toronto Maple Leafs front office. I think he was there for 10 years. They were in Toronto for most of their childhood. And then I can't remember where he got a job after that. It's escaping me. But these are not hockey guys from playing on the pond and waiting for the ice to freeze before they put on their skill. Like, these are guys who played in arenas. These are city boys. And for the longest time, Quinn's playing in Vancouver. Vancouver's a nice city. Like, when you talk about like places in Canada you want to visit, it goes Toronto, Montreal, and then you're tied for Vancouver, and then what's that place that national park people go to?
Whistler?
No.
The Stanley Park?
No, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like near Calgary. But Vancouver's like right up there with Montreal. It's like a great city to live in. A lot of tourist attractions, those types of things. Like, everybody's just like, well, Zach Werenski has to leave. He lives in Columbus. Dylan Larkin has to leave. He lives in Detroit. Like, these are not like all Americans. This isn't New York, right? And I know he lives in New Jersey, which just means he gets to pay New Jersey taxes and gets all the glory of New York. Because guess what? If he played for the Rangers, he'd probably live in Hoboken anyway.
Yep.
And I know for the longest time we didn't want to talk about it. Like, don't make New York your selling point. They'll just go to the Rangers. No, make New York your selling point. Use all your selling points. New York is a selling point. But the biggest selling point that people keep just ignoring or outright lying about is Luke Hughes. You're not going to leave your little brother stranded in New Jersey because you want to go play with your older brother. You're going to convince your older brother to wait. And here it is, Sam. It's going to be July 9th. It came out yesterday that they just started talking. Now, Quinn Hughes is a priority. And here's the deal. Pat Brisson is still busy. Because his client list includes Dylan Larkin, I believe Patrick Kane. There's another guy. Is it Werenski? It's not like his day is slowed down. So if they didn't do this because Pat Brisson was busy, Jason Robertson is one of his clients.
That's a big one.
And Trevor Zegras, who needs a new contract. His days haven't gotten less busy, right? He's focusing on other things, and if the Wild can't get his attention for what's probably going to be the richest contract in the sport, and that's the thing, Sam. The conversation was 3x18, right?
That's an assumption. I know it's been reported.
Elliot Friedman is still the top insider, and he's saying it. He's outright saying it. I have to ask, does Quinn Hughes want to get paid as much as Cutter or as Leo Carlson? Or did his number just go up for Minnesota?
Well, from a strategic standpoint, the longer Quinn Hughes waits, the better it is for him and the New Jersey Devils.
As confident as the Wild fans sound, you can't actually feel confident. I would if Nico Hischier didn't have a contract today, I'd be sweating.
Oh yeah,
I'd be sweating.
I'd be like, the things. Well,
might want to call Montreal.
Through the media, the goalposts have changed. I mean, I was the only one on X that literally called out the owner. Bravo Sierra. I'll believe it when I see it, when he came out with those statements. And it came out of nowhere.
There's an article on Pucks and Pitchforks that says, I'm not worried at all about those statements.
No, Pucks and Pitchforks. I meant on X. That's what I was saying, on X.
Yeah, but the article made it on X.
Yeah, I know, but the point I'm trying to make is
that those comments meant nothing. There was nothing.
It meant nothing. It meant nothing. And again, because there was a lot of confidence in the media that they're close. They are far from it. And now the truth is starting to come out. We've had preliminary talks, kind of. And now it's kind of like, okay, I believe in Mike Russo. I believe in Elliot Friedman. I believe in all the reporting. What I don't believe is the BS that's being told to them by their sources. That I don't believe. Because it's so one-sided right now. So one-sided. All these leaks right now. It all adds up to one thing. If Bill Guerin can't, he put himself in this in this corner after the season was over. I got to get it done. That's like he was all fired up, like he was going out on the ice. But I'm going to tell you something. It's going to probably wind up, and I'm making a prediction here, Nick, and I'm being very bold about it. I know everyone's telling me you got a 0.05% chance, whatever. But Bill Guerin trading for Quinn Hughes may be the best thing that ever happened to the New Jersey Devils. Because I'll tell you, because the Devils would have given a lot to get Quinn, but right now I'm liking how this is all turning out, because what if Quinn does not re-sign? What happens? Does he become a rental? Does he get traded by trade deadline? We're only talking about a year now.
Yeah, here's what I think is going to happen. I still think the most likely outcome is he resigns for 3 years. There's some smoke. There's not a lot of smoke in general for such a big deal. There's more smoke around everybody else, around Larkin, around Robertson, around a lot of these other guys. There's more smoke than there is around Hughes. If they get to September, if games start, Hughes is a rental. Unless something crazy happens. They get off to like a 20-5 start or something, and he catches them on a good day, which I think Guerin's going to use guerrilla warfare to try to get Quinn Hughes to sign. I think he's going to use every dirty tactic in the book of psychology, of pitting your friends against you. I think he's going to use everything. I think he's going to trade for his friends. I think he's going to try everything. If he's not signed by September, I think the most likely outcome is that he's a rental. and then his rights get traded.
I completely agree. That's the most. I would agree that that's the most likely. That's the most likely scenario. I think you hit it on the head, Nick.
I don't think Guerin's going to trade him for anything. I think he's willing to go down with, because he knows if I trade, because this isn't Mikko Rantanen, right? This hasn't really worked out here. What's going on? Like he fits there like a glove. They need him to be competitive in that division. I don't know anything the Devils could give him to entice him.
Devils don't have to. The Devils don't have to.
Well, they do if they want him this year.
And that's a big if, but at the same time, like, your value goes down from a trade standpoint when the other team can wait it out a year.
I mean, personally, I would rather not. I think we've all learned a lesson here that he could get traded to a crazy person, which I think Bill Guerin is. Bill Guerin using Mike Russo as a sounding board is weird. And the fact that exists is weird to me.
Well, why do you think I've been trolling all this time?
Oh, I know why you're doing it. Just the way Mike Russo coming out and saying they've called on Jack Hughes. Okay. And then it was Russo said they called on Luke Hughes, right? For the trade deadline?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, after the fans were booing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's bad journalism.
I wish Sonny Maida would use me as a sounding board. Sorry.
It's just bad journalism.
You're
reporting, like, the reason that we report phone calls is because we think they're going somewhere. And Mike Russo comes up, well, I'm just reporting that there was a phone call. Okay. And he said, this is the part that I think is hilarious. And this is the part, Russo reporting that, and we've talked about this, Sam, and we got to go. We got a lot going on tonight, but Russo reporting that tells me that Guerin isn't above his head.
Yep.
Guerin doesn't win a lot of negotiations. He lost the Kaprizov negotiation. He's losing every negotiation. He's overpaid everybody this year. The only one he's really won is the Boldy, and you could see why Boldy signed that contract. Like, he was young, and he hadn't shown much yet, but now he's one of the best players in the league. Or not that's overselling it. He's a very good player. Yeah, him coming out and having Russo report that tells me he's out of ideas. Sam, Bill Guerin went to New Jersey and left without a contract. He went to New Jersey to meet Quinn Hughes and left without a contract.
I'm still on that line for tomorrow, by the way.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Tom Fitzgerald wouldn't have left without a contract. Sonny Maida's not leaving without a contract. Ray Sherrill wouldn't have left without a contract. Lou Lamoriello wouldn't have left without a contract.
And you know what's the great thing about having Sonny as GM? The poker player is the more silent Sonny Maida is, the better. The better it is, because you're not hearing any leaks from any of the reporters in New Jersey. You're not hearing anything out of the ordinary, like Mike Russo is reporting, and again, if I was going to score it with leverage, advantage Maida and the Devils right now. The longer this thing goes. Now, my role, although funny, I try to make it fun on the X.
I think you got mentioned by Mike Russo on a podcast.
Yeah, and I want to respond to that because I didn't listen to it, whatever. First off, I love Mike Russo. I followed him for many years, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's simply a disagreement. I'm not going to question his integrity, all that. It has nothing to do with that. But at some point,
okay, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. At some point, Nick, and this is and I want to tell the audience, at some point, with all this reporting about what's going on, you got to start counting. You got to have a scoreboard and start holding a lot of people accountable. People forget very easily. The goalposts have moved so much in the last month. You know, a month and a half ago, Minnesota was thinking this is done deal. It's far from it. And that was the point I was trying to make after that owner went on his spiel. Nobody knows. I don't think even Quinn Hughes knows what to do. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. I disagree with you with the integrity thing. I worked in journalism for a long time. I take it very seriously. And it's just not. What he's doing is similar to what I'm doing at Pucks and Pitchforks. And, you know, it's rumor mongering. It's talking like he's out there to start a conversation and to get clicks. I'm not a journalist. I was a journalist, but not for the Devils. I was a journalist, you know, covering things, you know, news. So I look at this much differently. And when I see someone who's just out and about misusing the label of journalist, I do get a little grossed out. I feel icky thinking about what he's doing. So that's how we'll end it. I don't want to burn bridges for anybody. I know you got friends of the industry, but I just can't agree with that. Like what he's doing is it's just bringing a bad name to the Athletic. We just got to be honest. There's a lot of really good people at the Athletic. We have a lot of them on the show, and I hope we have them on again. If you want I don't think you do, but if you ever wanted Mike Russo on the show, I'm taking the week off.
Boy, the ratings would be so great. Actually, Nick, what I was trying to convey about the integrity thing, what I was trying to really more or less convey is my intention and all the stuff that I do on X and all that kind of stuff was to keep a reminder, hey, this is what you reported, this is what's happening now, and I'm not going to let that go. That's all.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm not trying to disparage you.
Because a lot of people think that that I have this hatred, and there's no hate here. There's none of it. You know, it's just a disagreement.
No, I don't have hate. I just I got the ick.
Yeah.
Anyway,
what's on pucksandpitchforks.com?
So, me and JP disagree. I think we should go after Shane Wright. JP thinks we should not go after Shane Wright. Go on pucksandpitchforks.com. Put those stories on right now. We have the fallout from Barrett Hayton staying with the Mammoth. We have 2 articles on that. And we're going to have a bunch of stuff. I have 3 guys that you had no idea left the Devils. I didn't even get to Colton White. I wrote it before Colton White left. But we got a lot going on pucksandpitchforks.com.
Awesome. Well, we're going to drop the podcast in about 20 minutes. I want to thank Keith Kavanaugh for coming on PuckPedia. You haven't yet. You should have. Go to PuckPedia.com. Great website. They do a great job with the cap information and playing GM and all that kind of good stuff. So thank you to all those tuning in. Till next time, let's go Devils.